I designed every inch of that wedding menu's signs, the monogram, everything. And when I showed up, they said I wasn't on the guest list. They called me a stranger. So I walked away. And what happened next, it changed everything. This isn't just a story about betrayal. It's about the moment you stop begging to belong and start choosing yourself. I used to believe that families were complicated, but at the end of the day, they were still home. Until the day mine told me with unnerving clarity that I wasn't welcome in theirs. My name is Claire Bennett. I'm 29, a freelance graphic designer living in a small plant-filled apartment in Cambridge, Massachusetts. I specialize in wedding stationery menus, invitations, seating charts, welcome signs, the things you don't notice unless they're done wrong. I love the precision, the emotional weight hidden inside paper. I like making things that say, "You belong here." Irony. I know. I wasn't the favorite daughter. That was Savannah. She was born with effortless magnetism, golden hair, ocean eyes, and a voice that always knew how to stay just within the line of charming. People say she lit up a room, but what they don't say is that when someone lights up a room, everyone else ends up in the shadows. Our mother Elaine adored her, not in the passive parental way people toss around my baby girl, but in the devoted, all-consuming way usually reserved for royal blood or fragile egos. Mom's energy was loud. She wore heels at home, carried herself like she was perpetually about to be photographed, and never missed a social event unless someone was dying. She used to joke that Savannah was her second chance at popularity. I always wondered if that made me the failure she tried to forget. Dad Daniel was the only one who saw me clearly. He noticed my silence and didn't try to fix it. When I brought home drawings or school awards, he taped them to the fridge with an almost ceremonial pride. He was gentle with calloused hands and a quiet sense of humor. But he died when I was 15, sudden cardiac arrest while fixing a broken light switch. After that, the house went quieter, colder. All the softness left with him. Savannah blossomed. I shrank. By the time we hit our 20s, Savannah was on magazine covers, bride-to-be articles, fashion spreads, the kind of aspirational lifestyle content my mother devoured. I was building a freelance business designing for clients I found on wedding forums and referrals. I lived simply, worked late, and called my mother every Sunday out of habit more than affection. When Savannah got engaged to Ethan Monroe, a tech consultant from a wealthy Connecticut family, Elaine practically lost her mind with excitement. She dove into wedding planning like it was her personal redemption arc. Every detail had to be curated, elevated, worthy of the Monroe name. I offered to help. I said I'd design the full wedding suite as my gift, save the dates, invitations, signage, menus, custom seating charts. It would have cost them over $4,000 if they'd hired someone else. Mom didn't even say thank you. She simply responded, "Well, you might as well make yourself useful." Savannah didn't object. She just handed me her Pinterest board and said, "Do your best, but keep it elegant. Nothing weird." So I did. I designed revised, color-matched, and adjusted margins at 2 a.m. for weeks. I poured myself into it. Because I wanted to be part of it. Because I thought, maybe this time, I'd belong. When the invitations were mailed out, I kept checking the mailbox. Nothing came. I assumed it was a clerical error. Then I assumed it was being hand-delivered. Finally, I asked Mom casually over the phone. "Oh, Claire," she said, "your family. You don't need a formal invite. That's for guests." I nodded like I understood. But something inside me curled and burned. Guests get a place at the table. Guests are considered. Guests are wanted. I tried to shake it off. I focused on my role, not my feelings. I told myself I was overthinking, that surely they'd just forgot the envelope, but my seat was saved. But deep down, I'd felt this before. That faint hollow ache of being kept near enough to be useful but never close enough to be embraced. It was a crisp October morning when I arrived at the Newport Harbor Hotel, arms full of final details, the seating chart I'd printed on heavy ivory stock, a box of personalized menus still warm from the printer, and favor tags tied in the exact shade of eucalyptus green Savannah had insisted on. The valet offered to help, but I declined. I wanted to carry it all myself. Maybe some irrational part of me believed that if I showed up like I mattered, someone would treat me that way. Inside the lobby, I caught glimpses of satin gowns and champagne glasses. Staff bustled around floral centerpieces as large as toddlers. A string quartet was rehearsing near the ceremony garden, the notes of Vivaldi's Spring echoing in the marble space like laughter underwater. I stepped up to the check-in table near the ballroom entrance, where two women in matching navy blazers were sorting place cards by last name. "Hi," I said, clearing my throat. "I'm Claire Bennett. I'm the bride's sister." The older one smiled politely. "Let me just find your envelope." She flipped through the rows once. Then again. Her smile faltered. "What was the last name again?" she asked. "Bennett? Or it might be under Monroe. I'm not sure how they registered me." The younger woman pulled out a laptop. Her nails clicked softly across the keyboard. "Could you spell it again?" I did. Another pause. "I'm sorry," she said, brows furrowing. "I don't see you on the guest list." I laughed, but it came out brittle. "That can't be right. I'm her sister. I helped design almost everything." She gave me a look I couldn't quite read, apology mixed with uncertainty. "Maybe you're listed under staff or vendors." I froze. I looked down at the menu cards in my hands, the ribbons beginning to crease. "No," I said softly. "I'm not a vendor." She shifted uncomfortably. "Would you like me to call the wedding coordinator?" "Yes, or maybe my mother. Elaine Bennett. She's probably inside." The older woman nodded and made the call. I stood there waiting, pretending not to hear the conversation taking place just a few feet away. "She says she's the bride's sister." "Yes." "No, she doesn't have a vendor badge. She brought supplies." "Okay, I'll tell her." She hung up. "I'm sorry. Mrs. Bennett asked that no one without a formal invitation be admitted at this time. She said you should know that. It was the kind of sentence that doesn't hurt all at once, it seeps in slowly like cold water through clothes." "She's coming out?" the younger woman added quickly. "To speak with you." I nodded. My throat burned. A few minutes later I saw her, my mother Elaine Bennett, walking toward me like she was striding onto a stage. Her posture was perfect, her makeup flawless, the kind of elegance that could cut glass. "Claire," she said, not unkindly, but distant. "What are you doing here?" I held up the seating chart as if it were a passport. "I brought the print materials. I assumed. I thought I was supposed to drop them off and then stay." She tilted her head the way people do when they're feigning patience. "Claire, today is not the day for confusion or drama. This is Savannah's moment." "I'm not making a scene," I said quietly. I didn't get a seat, or a table number, or an invitation." "Because you weren't invited," she replied as if she were explaining simple math. My mouth went dry. "But I'm your daughter." A pause. "Today you're not part of the guest list," she said. "We needed things to be seamless. Strangers aren't allowed." Strangers. I didn't hear the rest of what she said. My ears were ringing. Somewhere behind her the quartet had begun to play again, maybe Canon in D, maybe something else I couldn't tell anymore. The violin hummed against the marble like it was mocking me. I stared at her face, waiting for some twitch of remorse. But there was only calm calculation, like she was reorganizing chairs in her mind, and I simply didn't fit. "You knew I was coming," I whispered. "You let me design everything. And you knew." She didn't deny it. I blinked hard once, twice. I wouldn't cry here. Not in front of people who only knew me as that woman with the menu cards. Slowly I placed the seating chart on the check-in table. I straightened the corners even though my hands were shaking. "You should have just hired a vendor," I said, my voice barely audible. Then I turned and walked out. Past the gleaming floors, past the guests sipping cocktails, past the woman who raised me but refused to recognize me. The doors opened automatically, releasing me into the cold. The wind off the harbor stung my eyes, or maybe that was something else. I walked 3 blocks before I let myself cry. I didn't go home after the wedding. I couldn't. Instead, I showed up at Naomi's apartment just past midnight. She opened the door in a faded college sweatshirt, her hair twisted into a bun on top of her head. She didn't ask questions, just stepped aside to let me in. I collapsed onto her couch like something lifeless. For 2 days, I barely moved. I didn't eat. I didn't speak. I didn't cry anymore. The tears had dried into a dull ache behind my eyes. Naomi tried coaxing me with soup playlists, sarcastic jokes. None of it stuck. I lay there wrapped in a throw blanket, replaying everything on loop the way the receptionist tilted her head. My mother's voice. Strangers aren't allowed. On the second night, around 3:11 a.m., something inside me snapped awake. Not with rage, not even with sorrow, just clarity. I sat up, wiped my face, and reached for my laptop. The blue glow of the screen lit the room as I opened my design program, exported my final invoice template, and started typing. I itemized everything: custom logo design, $320. Save the dates, $450. Main invitations, 3 variations, $980. Menus, $620. Seating chart layout, $700. Favor tags and signage, $830. Rush print coordination, $540. Delivery and materials, $360. Total, $4. 800 USD payment due within 10 business days. Late fees apply. I stared at the grand total, a sum that could have covered my rent for 4 months, a sum that I had never planned to charge, a gift I had told myself, a gesture of love. But love, it turned out, had a guest list, and I wasn't on it. I opened my inbox and clicked compose. Then I wrote, subject from your vendor. Dear Elaine and Savannah, I hope the event went exactly as you envisioned. Attached is the final invoice for the complete design services rendered over the last 10 weeks. As discussed while I originally offered this as a gift, recent circumstances have made it clear that our relationship is more transactional in nature. Please find the full breakdown attached. I expect payment in full within 10 business days. Feel free to reach out with any questions regarding the line items. I'm happy to clarify as I would for any client. Regards, Claire Bennett. I read it 3 times. Then I hit send. For the first time in days, I exhaled. I closed the laptop gently, not with triumph, but with finality, like placing the last book on a shelf you've outgrown. Naomi padded into the living room moments later, rubbing her eyes. Hey, did I hear typing? I looked up. She was squinting at the glow of my screen. I sent them a bill, I said simply. Her eyes widened. Wait, like an actual invoice? I nodded. She grinned. Holy shit. Can I see it? I turned the screen toward her. She skimmed it silently, then looked up. You itemized emotional damage. No, I said. That one's priceless. She laughed loud, tired, beautiful. Then she sat beside me, pulled the blanket over our legs, and rested her head on my shoulder. After a while, she said softly, I'm proud of you. I didn't answer right away. I stared at the inbox, waiting for that bounce-back email that would tell me they'd blocked me. Or worse, a reply filled with accusations. But nothing came. And maybe that was its own answer. Naomi squeezed my hand. Finally, she whispered, You stood up for yourself. Not with a scream, not with a public scene, but with a PDF and a deadline. The voicemail came on a Wednesday. I was trimming basil in the kitchen when I saw her name flash on my phone screen, Elaine Bennett. The same name that used to fill me with the anxious hope of being invited in. Now it just made me tired. I didn't answer, but I didn't delete it either. It sat there for hours, just a blinking red notification. At 2:04 a.m., I finally pressed play. Claire, I don't know why you're doing this. Her voice was too casual, like she was calling about a misplaced coat. Are you still upset? Look, I know the wedding was complicated, but it wasn't personal. I just wanted everything to go smoothly that day, that's all. And you always take things so seriously. A soft sigh, fabric rustling. You've always been sensitive, Claire. That's not a bad thing, but it's exhausting sometimes. You read into everything. And Savannah, she needed me. That day was hers. You've always been independent. You don't need hand-holding. Another pause. Her voice dropped as if she were sitting down. I just don't get why you're making a scene about this now. After all these years, I thought you understood the family dynamic. I thought you were okay with it. Click. The message ended there. I stood alone in the kitchen, the basil wilting between my fingers, her words settling around me like cold air. Not once had she said she missed me. Not once had she said she was sorry. Just, "You're overreacting. You always have." It wasn't new. That was how she'd raised me in the long shadow of Savannah, in the small print of family love where my name was always on the edge of the page. I walked into the living room. The gallery wall above my couch was a collage of family photos, vacations, birthdays, moments I'd tried to believe were real. I reached up and began taking them down one by one. I didn't rush. I removed each frame with the same quiet resolve of someone disassembling an altar. Then I opened the storage trunk beneath my bed, the one where I kept old letters, holiday cards, and gifts my mother had given me over the years. A silver locket, a birthday book with 2 lines written inside, a ceramic mug from college that said, "Proud of you," but had never been used. I placed each item in a cardboard box gently, but without sentiment. There was no fire, no shouting, just the end of something I had carried too long. I sat on the floor beside the box and played the voicemail one more time. I let every word pass through me without trying to argue with it. "You always take things so seriously. Savannah needed me. You don't need hand-holding." And then the most telling line of all, "I thought you were okay with it." She had built her peace on the assumption that I would keep swallowing pain indefinitely. She had mistaken silence for acceptance. I picked up my phone and opened the voice memo app. I wasn't planning to send it. I just wanted to hear myself say it. "Mom, you wanted that day to go smoothly. You wanted perfection for Savannah, for the photographs, for the Monroes, and you got it, but you didn't choose me. You didn't stand at the entrance and say, 'This is my daughter.' You didn't defend me when they labeled me a vendor. You didn't even look surprised. You knew I'd come, and you knew I wasn't invited, and still you let me walk away. So this, whatever it is you're trying now, this doesn't work anymore. You didn't choose me that day, and I won't choose you today." I stopped the recording. It was the most peace I'd felt in weeks. Later that morning, I sealed the box with old family keepsakes and slid it into the back of my closet. Not thrown away, just out of reach. Sometimes closure doesn't come with a slam or a scream. Sometimes it's the softness of letting go. The quiet grace of no longer hoping someone will change. When I turned off my phone that night, I didn't feel angry. I felt free. The office was smaller than I expected. Not cold or clinical, more like a quiet reading room in someone's well-lived home. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves lined one wall, a muted area rug covered the hardwood floor, and the chair I sat in was soft enough to sink into, but firm enough that I couldn't disappear. Which was disappointing, because I wanted to disappear. Dr. Keller sat across from me, notebook open, pen, uncapped face kind. She didn't ask me to start. She waited. I stared at the corner of the rug, where the threads were slightly frayed. The silence in the room wasn't uncomfortable, just spacious, like she had made room for me to bring my pain without rushing it. Finally, I spoke. Just one sentence. "I don't think my mother ever loved me." And then I cried. Not the neat single tear kind of crying. Not the soft sniffles you see in movies. It was messy. Raw. Years of silenced ache clawing its way up from the center of my chest. I cried for the little girl who colored outside the lines and was told to give the crayons back to her sister. I cried for the teenager who won a statewide art competition and was told Savannah's cheer finals are the same weekend, so we'll be in Atlanta. I cried for the woman who poured her soul into wedding menus only to be turned away like a stranger with no RSVP. Dr. Keller didn't interrupt. She handed me a box of tissues and nodded gently. That first session ended with very few words, mostly mine, mostly pain. But I went back the next week, and the week after that. Session by session, I unraveled memories like tangled threads. I remember this one Thanksgiving I told her I was probably 12. Savannah had forgotten to bring anything for the potluck, so Mom told me to give her the pie I had baked. She said, "You're the easy one, Claire. You understand." Dr. Keller tilted her head. "How did that feel?" "I felt invisible," I said. "But I also felt like maybe that's the only way I'd ever be accepted. By not needing anything." She scribbled something down. "Invisible is a powerful word. I nodded. Other stories poured out in fragments. How I used to hide in the linen closet during family fights. How Mom always introduced me as the quiet one while beaming at Savannah's every accomplishment. How I tried to overachieve to earn love, only to be called dramatic when I finally broke down. She weaponized my silence, I said once. She used it as proof I didn't need anything. Dr. Keller leaned forward. You were taught that being easy to manage was the only way to be worthy of love. I bit my lip. Is it selfish to want to be seen? Not selfish, she said. Human. She paused for a moment, choosing her words carefully. You are not wrong for wanting love from the person who gave you life, but you are mistaken if you believe you must wait your whole life to finally deserve it. Her voice was calm but unwavering, like a lighthouse in fog. You were born deserving. And when people, especially family, fail to love you the way you need, that doesn't mean you are the problem. It just means they're not capable of giving what you hoped they could. I inhaled sharply. It hit like truth often does, gently at first, then with the weight of years behind it. Then what do I do with that ache, I asked, because it never really goes away. Dr. Keller folded her hands in her lap. You make room for it. You stop trying to kill it or fix it. You stop trying to prove anything to people who already decided what role you play. And you build something new somewhere else, like a found family. Maybe. Or maybe just a found self. After one particularly difficult session, she handed me a small card from her desk drawer. On it, in simple black ink, was a quote. You don't have to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. Unknown. I stared at it for a long time. It described me too well. For years I had been the quiet one, the accommodating one, the daughter who didn't ask for much, the sister who didn't cry when left behind, the woman who showed up with wedding menus and left with nothing. But I was learning now, through hours on that couch, through every brave word spoken into that quiet room, that not asking was not the same as not needing. And being easy to love wasn't the same as being loved. By the 10th session, I told her something I hadn't said to anyone. I think I'm starting to feel sorry for her, I said. My mom. Dr. Keller raised her brows. Why? Because she's missing so much of me, I said quietly. And she doesn't even know what she's losing. She didn't respond right away. Then she smiled, small and proud. That's not weakness, Claire. That's healing. It took Claire 4 weeks to open the wedding box again. It had been sitting untouched in the corner of her studio beneath a shelf of swatch books and unopened paper samples. For a while, she couldn't bear to look at it. But one rainy afternoon in November, with her fingers stained from tea and ink, she pulled the box forward and lifted the lid. Inside were the proofs, the save-the-date printed on pearl cardstock, the invitations with gold foil trim, the matching RSVP cards. The monogram she had designed S&E, in a serif font, wrapped in hand-drawn olive branches, still looked painfully beautiful. She ran her fingers over the embossed texture and felt nothing at first. Then a dull ache in her ribs. Not from the design, from the memory of who it was for. Claire took a photo of the invitation. Just the card centered against a white table. Simple, quiet. No faces, no accusations. Then she opened Instagram and wrote the caption. I designed every detail of that wedding. Every menu, every favor tag, every hand-lettered welcome sign. I poured hours into making it perfect. But on the actual day, I wasn't allowed in. I wasn't late. I wasn't dressed wrong. I wasn't forgotten. I just wasn't invited. Because in their words, strangers aren't allowed. And that day, I was a stranger. I share this not for pity, but for anyone who's ever been the quiet one, the accommodating one, the one who gave everything and was still left outside the door. You're not alone, and you're not invisible, even when they try to make you feel that way. She didn't add hashtags, didn't tag anyone, just posted it and closed the app. It wasn't anger that made her post it. It was truth. And the quiet belief that maybe, just maybe, someone out there would understand. She went to bed without checking her phone. When she woke up, the post had over 42,000 likes. By noon, her inbox was full. Messages poured in from strangers across the world. Women who had been left off bridal party lists. Men disowned for marrying the wrong person. Adult children ignored in family group chats. People who were never the favorite, always the helper, always the afterthought. One woman wrote, "They used my money to fund my sister's wedding and then told me I made things uncomfortable by asking for reimbursement. I thought I was crazy until I read your post." Another said, "When my father remarried, he told me he didn't want to complicate the seating chart. So I stayed home. Thank you for putting into words what I couldn't." The comment section turned into something more than a venting space. It became a mirror, a quiet revolution of the discarded reclaiming their names. Claire read every message. She replied to dozens, not with advice, not with false cheer, just, "I see you, I believe you, you deserved better." 3 days later, she received an email from a digital editor at Her Story, a prominent online publication focused on women's narratives and emotional truth. The subject line read, "Your post moved us, would you share more?" Claire hesitated. She'd never seen herself as a writer. She drew, she designed, she made things beautiful from the background. But now someone was offering her the mic. The email continued. "We think your voice would resonate with so many of our readers. If you're willing, we'd love a personal essay about what happened, what you felt, and how you're moving forward." Working title suggestion, "I didn't lose my family, I lost the illusion that I was ever part of it." The title stopped her breath. It was harsh, but honest. Too honest, maybe. She stared at it for a long time, then whispered to the empty room, "Yes." She wrote the piece over 2 nights. It wasn't polished. It didn't follow any perfect structure. It wasn't even fully linear. But it was raw. And hers. She wrote about being the easy child, the one praised for not needing too much. She wrote about the ache of being useful but not wanted. She wrote about the wedding, the email, the voicemail, the therapy sessions, where she finally admitted that love withheld can wound as deeply as violence. The piece closed with this line, "I didn't walk away from my family. I walked toward myself, toward the version of me that no longer begs to be chosen." When Her Story published it a week later, it went viral again. She was flooded with invitations to speak, to share, to join panels on emotional boundaries and found family. But Claire didn't say yes to all of them. She didn't want to become a brand. She just wanted to speak when it mattered, and for the first time people were listening. That night, she reposted the original wedding card photo with a new caption, "I was the stranger that day. But I am no longer a stranger to myself." The inquiry came through her website on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. Subject design, "Help for a different kind of wedding," from Janelle Townsend. The message was brief but striking. "I want my wedding to be mine, not my mother's, not Pinterest's, not some magazine's version of perfect. Just me. Simple, real, a little weird. I don't know if that's your thing, but I saw your post, and I think maybe you'd get it." Claire sat with the email for a moment before responding. Something in the tone, equal parts courage and exhaustion, felt familiar. She replied, "Let's meet. I'd love to hear what yours looks like." They met at a small cafe on the edge of Somerville. Janelle arrived in jeans and a linen coat, her curls tied in a loose knot, her face makeup-free except for one bold swipe of cranberry lipstick. She didn't order coffee, just herbal tea and a slice of lemon cake. "I'm not a big ceremony person," she said, "but my partner's amazing, and I want to mark this chapter with something that feels like home." Claire smiled. "And your family?" Janelle winced. "My mom wants a ballroom. I want a backyard. She wants ivory and blush. I want burnt orange and dark green and probably some Taylor Swift lyrics somewhere on the menu." Claire laughed softly. "Honestly, that sounds kind of perfect." "Do you think we can make it work?" Janelle asked, tilting her head. "Something small but full of intention. Something unapologetically me." Claire didn't hesitate. "Yes, absolutely." Over the next 2 months, they built it together. They picked fonts that felt handwritten and honest. They used seed paper for place cards. Guests could plant them afterward and grow wildflowers. Janelle's vows were printed as little scrolls, tied with silk ribbon, one for each guest to keep. No corset gowns, no plated dinners, no first dances under crystal chandeliers. Instead, a garden ceremony, lanterns, poems read by friends, a soft instrumental cover of You Are in Love playing as Janelle walked barefoot down the stone path in a forest green wrap dress. Claire didn't just design the details, she protected them. When Janelle's mother tried to upgrade the table layout to something more traditional, Claire stepped in kindly but firmly. This is the bride's vision, and it's beautiful just the way it is. Janelle had cried when she saw the finished signage, the vow scrolls, the watercolor welcome sign painted with ferns and constellations. "This is the wedding I didn't know I was allowed to want," she whispered. The night of the wedding was cool and quiet, like the beginning of autumn, the kind of evening where you can see your breath and feel everything. Claire stayed in the background as she always did, checking alignment, fixing a name card that had fluttered to the ground, smoothing a wrinkled corner of the vow table. When the ceremony ended and the lights grew soft, Janelle found her near the floral archway. Without saying a word, she wrapped Claire in a tight hug. "You helped me choose myself," she said, voice thick with emotion. "I think you understand how hard that can be." Claire's throat tightened. She nodded. "I do." Driving home that night, Claire didn't cry. She didn't ache. She just breathed. For the first time in months, she didn't feel like the girl left outside the wedding. She felt like the woman who helped build one. Not for a family that didn't want her, but for someone who chose herself, and in doing so helped Claire find the courage to keep choosing too. Claire waited until midnight to write it. The apartment was silent. Outside, the city shimmered in hushed streetlights, casting amber halos, windows glowing in quiet apartments where other people lived other lives. She lit a candle on the balcony and pulled a blank sheet of paper from her drawer. The pen felt heavier than it should have. This time, she wasn't writing to be understood. She was writing to let go. She began, "Dear Mom, I'm not sending this letter. Maybe that's the point. There's nothing left to prove, and nothing I need you to say anymore. But there are things I want to release from me, not for you. I used to think that crying made me weak. But the truth is, I've cried for years, quietly, consistently. Not because I didn't get what I wanted, not because I lacked gifts or praise or holidays together. I cried because I never felt seen. You never noticed that. You never noticed that I was always the one standing at the edge of the room, waiting to be pulled in. You never saw that I made myself small, so Savannah could shine. You told me I was easy, that I understood, that I didn't need. But I did. I needed you to notice, to ask, to choose me. And when you didn't, I learned to become my own silence. You called me sensitive, dramatic, too emotional. But sensitivity isn't the problem. Silence is. You didn't hear me because I was too quiet. And I was too quiet because I thought love meant not taking up space. That love meant being useful, agreeable, invisible if necessary. I don't believe that anymore. I've stopped crying now, not because the ache is gone, but because it no longer controls me. Something shifted. I learned that real love doesn't need to be earned, or begged for, or bartered. I learned that family isn't made of obligation, or matching names, or blood. Family is the place where you don't have to disappear in order to belong. And that is not what you gave me. I used to think that maybe if I was just quieter, easier, more helpful, you'd love me the way you love her. But I'm not her. And I don't want to be. I'm Claire. I'm the girl who designed your wedding, who brought flowers to your hospital bed, who waited for a seat at your table for almost 3 decades, and now I'm the woman who walked away. Not out of spite, out of mercy for myself. I didn't lose a mother, I lost the illusion of one. And with that loss came freedom. Freedom to feel fully, to speak gently and still be heard, to build my own name, my own family, my own story. So, no, I'm not sending this letter, because I don't need you to read it to make it true. Goodbye, Mom. Claire. She signed her name in the same script she used for vow cards and menu tags. But this wasn't design. This was something far more permanent. She folded the letter once, then again. She stepped out onto the balcony where the candle flickered against the night. She held the letter to the flame. For a second it refused to catch. Then slowly the edges curled. The ink bled. The words twisted upward in ash. She watched the smoke rise gray ribbons unraveling into the dark sky. No anger, no revenge, just release. The last of it floated out into the wind, joining the night like a secret finally let go. Claire leaned against the railing, the cool air brushing her skin. She wasn't empty. She was whole. And this time she wasn't waiting to be chosen. She had already chosen herself. Claire had never hosted a Thanksgiving before. In her family, holidays had always belonged to her mother, choreographed with obsessive precision. The golden place cards, the monogrammed napkins, the roast carved exactly at 600 p.m. Claire's role was to help stay quiet and not disrupt the picture. But this year was different. This year the picture was hers. She spent the morning barefoot in her kitchen sleeves, rolled up jazz, humming low from the speaker by the window. The table was mismatched borrowed chairs, second-hand plates, wine glasses that didn't match, but sparkled just the same. There were no gold-foiled invitations, no floral centerpieces arranged by professionals, just warm bread, candles in mason jars, a roast chicken that was slightly overcooked but made the whole apartment smell like memory. And people, her people. Naomi arrived first, carrying a bottle of red and 2 pies she swore she didn't bake herself. "I bought them from the fancy bakery so you'd think I tried," she said, grinning, as she hugged Claire tightly. Then came Janelle and her wife, laughing as they kicked off their boots and handed Claire a stack of vinyl records. "We thought music should be part of the meal," Janelle said. "You can't be full without good sound." Jason showed up a little late, camera slung across his chest. His curls tied back, a dish of garlic mashed potatoes in one hand and a tiny cactus in the other. "For your window," he said. "It doesn't need much to survive. Like us." 2 of Claire's former clients, Eliza and Marcus, arrived together with a bottle of bourbon and a homemade cranberry sauce that would end up being everyone's favorite. There were only 8 of them total. No blood relatives, no place cards, no need to explain herself. Just chosen people carrying dishes and stories and laughter into her small living room like it was the most natural thing in the world. At the table there were no toasts, no formal blessings, just forks clinking against plates, a few quiet mess, and the sound of Naomi mock yelling. "Who took the last of the mac and cheese?" "That was mine." Claire laughed. She looked around the table, and for a moment, she didn't feel like the person who had been left out of a wedding. She didn't feel like someone missing a mother or a sister. She felt full. After dinner, they sat on the floor with blankets and coffee mugs, trading stories and flipping through Jason's camera roll. Janelle curled up beside the windowsill and whispered something that made her wife laugh so hard she knocked over a throw pillow. Someone turned on an old Sam Cooke record. The music crackled softly like a warm fire. Claire sat back, legs tucked beneath her, sipping wine from a chipped ceramic mug. The kind of mug that didn't match anything, and yet somehow belonged perfectly here. And in that soft golden silence between songs, she felt it. This is home. Later that night, after everyone had gone and the dishes were stacked in the sink, Claire stood on the balcony again. The same balcony where months earlier she had burned her letter to her mother and watched the ashes vanish into the night. But this time there was no letting go. There was just being present. She looked out at the quiet street below and wrapped her cardigan tighter around her. Inside, the lights glowed soft. The leftovers were packed away. The scent of cinnamon and rosemary lingered in the air like a benediction. And then just one last thought. A memory of her mother's voice, cold and casual. "Strangers aren't allowed." Claire exhaled slowly. She whispered into the night, "You called me a stranger, but I found people who call me home. And for the first time in my life, I believe them."